Hey guys, welcome back. We're on day 19, a little late, but better late than never. I just got back from church this morning. It was incredible as always, and the message was just speaking about how God will use a lot of our hardships or challenges or things that we may feel are our fault in our lives because of sin, and He will use those to showcase Himself as a miracle and as a blessing so that other people can see his goodness and just the way that He works in our lives. And they use the story in the Bible of this blind man who was literally blind from the moment he was born. And the disciples were asking Jesus, like, is it this guy's fault or is it his parents' fault? Like, why is he blind? Why did that happen to him? And Jesus is like, no, you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're focused on whose sin caused this man to be blind. Like, why is this, what did he do to deserve this? When in reality, God literally chose him to be blind so that he could perform a miracle and the guy could see. And now people are wondering, like, how can he see? He's been blind his whole life. So the same thing goes for you in your life. If you feel that maybe you got dealt like a bad hand of cards in life, or things have been unfair for you, and maybe you're wondering that about a friend, like, why is this person going through this hardship? Like, it's not fair, God. Like, why is there so much suffering? And God is saying, don't you understand? Like, without these challenges and these people that are going through things, I wouldn't be able to showcase my miraculousness, my goodness. So I thought that was such a cool message, and it was beautiful, and I just wanted to share it with you. And I feel just so good and so just so grateful for what God is doing in my life and in your life and just in the world today. So today's devotional, that's what we're doing here today. I didn't mean to share about my church service, but hopefully it inspired you. So today's devotional says, cultivate your curiosity. And the verse comes from Exodus 3:2-3. It says, there the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. I'm convinced that the enemy plots with the spirit of the ordinary to get us to settle, to have us stay where we are, to remain content and silence our calling when it knocks. If the enemy can get a woman to fear, or better yet, to ignore the holy whisper that calls her into the battlefield of purpose and significance, then she'll never even know she's living beneath her birthright. Although he's a man, Moses is probably one of my favorite examples of this. He was an outcast, a foreigner, and an orphan, abandoned by his mother. He was tending to the fields, going through the motions, and doing the ordinary when God disrupted Moses' life in a radical way. A burning bush. That must have been a sight to see. Most people would have run the other way, but something inside Moses prompted him to walk towards the fire. He was able to discern the moment as a holy encounter, something new calling him. I believe it was the spirit of curiosity dwelling within him. Curiosity, a desire to know more about what God has for you, is the secret to shifting into a higher purpose. Curiosity is always the catalyst to calling, and it's the antidote to the spirit of the ordinary. The voice of heaven is leading you off the mundane path of predictability and onto a more anointed, adventurous one. So the question today asks, what is a current example of a burning bush in your life? What are you curious to discover about yourself and what God might be revealing about your future? So I really, really loved this one because it talks about having curiosity. And this is something I've really been leaning into a lot more recently and just has been coming up a lot, is all the verses in the Bible. And I actually want to go back and find them so I can actually know how many times it's referenced. But when Jesus, and I think probably God has kind of told some people as well, but I know Jesus always said to be curious like little children. And he talks about little children quite often and how the secret to life pretty much is being like little children and allowing our curiosity to guide us, allowing our curiosity to make us question things and make us like wonder about God and about the world instead of just accepting things as they are. Because as soon as we start to just accept things as they are, we are settling. And that's not what God wants for us. And although it may seem like settling is the better option, that's what the enemy wants us to believe. He wants us to believe that settling is the safe option. Settling is more comfortable. Settling is going to be better for you, because if you're settled and your life is predictable, nothing can go wrong and you'll be good and you'll be safe. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because when we're settling, what we're really doing is we are basically putting a cap on ourselves and our potential. We are not allowing God to come through and perform miracles. And this actually ties in well to the sermon that I heard today at church, because it was talking about how without hardships and without suffering and without these challenges that maybe sometimes we feel are unfair for us to go through, God wouldn't be able to prove miracles, right? Because miracles are proven usually through challenges and through things that we cannot predict, things that are not normal, are not average. So if we are constantly settling for average and normal, we leave no space and no room and no capacity for miracles to take place. It is actually when we can step outside the box and actually be curious and try to look for, how can God be speaking to me through this experience right now? Or what is he trying to show me? What is he trying to teach me through this experience? And that's where we start to see the miraculousness of him, is through being curious. So an example of a burning bush in my life right now, I guess something that is scary but also exciting for me, is just sharing more. And I've started to share more. If you don't follow me on Instagram, you can check the link down below in the comments. I have the link to my Instagram down there. I've been sharing more about my experience as a dancer, and I've been dancing for about 8.5 years, kind of on and off. If you followed me for a while on Instagram, I've kind of opened up and shared a little bit about it here and there, but I've always kind of been held back because of fear. So this kind of reminds me of the burning bush, because it's like, there's like this thing that is so obvious right in front of me that I'm like, okay, it's this big thing, you can't miss it, right? Like if you saw a burning bush, you would not be able to miss that, right? And part of me is like wanting to be curious and go into the fire and be like, I'm just gonna go all in and share about my life and be authentic. But then part of me is like, I don't know, like what if I get hurt, right? What if it's painful? It's a scary thing. And so for me, that's kind of where I'm at in my life. And I think that's what a lot of us deal with, especially when it comes to being vulnerable and just opening up parts of ourselves that we may feel fearful of or shameful of, or we may judge in some ways. And because we are perceiving them in that way, we think that other people are going to perceive us in that way, and other people are going to shame us or judge us or talk negatively about us if we open up about this or that, right? And being vulnerable is a scary thing, but God is calling us to go into the fire, and he's letting us know that he's going to be there with us. He's going to meet us there. And through the fire, we are going to be able to display his miracles and what he has to offer to the world. And the enemy wants us to just stay safe and not share about these taboo things or these things that may disrupt our lives or disrupt society in some way and have people think differently about us, right? But that's exactly what God is calling us to do. And I feel that's what he's calling me to do in this moment. And I thought this was the perfect devotional to just speak to that, because it's something I've really been feeling in my heart and feeling called to talk about more and share about more. But of course, there's like a piece of me that's like, I want to just run the other way because it's a scary, scary thing. But the burning bush example is a perfect example of how Moses did not run the other way. He went straight to the source and was curious, and he was like, what is this about, right? And in that moment is where God spoke to him and that's when he told him, that I'm going to bring you and your people into a land flowing with milk and honey. Like, that's where he made this promise to Abraham and to Moses. And so this is just a great example of how when we step into the discomfort and we are curious about what's in the unknown and what is on the other side of fear, that's where God will speak to us and give us his promises. So the prayer today says, Lord, you've made me in your image, which means that I am a warrior. Let me run towards the burning bush as I long to hear directly from you and to encounter you. I'm ready. I hope you're ready too. And thank you so much for listening to day number 19. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day and happy Sunday. Bye.